Good afternoon and welcome to Women Sweet on Women, Black Lesbian Film Festival. My name is Mary Ann Adams and I am the founder and executive director of Zami Nobla, National Organization of Black Lesbians on Aging. Deeply rooted in Atlanta with a national reach, Zami Nobla is committed to building a base of power for Black lesbians 40 and older living anywhere in the country. We service, we center service advocacy and community engaged research. We are absolutely thrilled to host our first virtual film festival with Out on Film and Sisters in Cinema. Hopefully, by now, you have viewed most of our films and certainly the one that is featuring Chamique Holdsclaw. It is my honor today to be here with this talk back, and we are thrilled to have Chamique here with her conversation partner, Melissa Gordon. They're going to be discussing Mind Game, the unquiet journey of Chamique Holdsclaw. Just a little bit about the both of them before we get started. Uh, I don't know if there are many basketball fans or just people generally who don't know who Chamique Holdsclaw is. Certainly, as an avid basketball fan, I've been following her career for most of my life. She went to the University of Tennessee from 95 to 99, where she played certainly under Coach Pat Summitt and helped lead the Lady Vols to the women's NCAA first ever three consecutive women's basketball championships. She's a former WNBA player, and she was inducted in the WNBA Hall of Fame in 2018. She wrote her autobiography at probably 18 or 19. Just kidding. She wrote her autobiography, Breaking Through, Beating the Odds, Shot After Shot in 2012. And in that book, she talked about dealing with depression during her professional basketball career. And subsequent to that, she collaborated with a documentary filmmaker, Rick Goldsmith, and they produced a film on her life. And we're going to be discussing that here today. Her conversation partner is Melissa Gordon, who is a poet, a writer, a community activist, a social worker, and a therapist. Melissa has a passion for promoting wellness. She's worked in various settings, including populations in crisis, including jails, prisons, psych centers, and more. She currently works in education, where she promotes SEL, SEL, social emotional intelligence, in students and teachers. She also helps clients meet self determined goals and develop coping skills in her private practice, New NEW, Nashville Emotional Wellness. I am absolutely thrilled to have you all here today for this talk back. Melissa, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction. First, gratitude for being in this space with you, Shamika. And first, I want to start with talking about vulnerability. And by vulnerability, I'm defining that, taking on my friend Brene Brown's definition. Vulnerability being the uncertainty, the risk, and emotional exposure that happens when we feel that we have this unstable feeling and it brings us out of our comfort zone. So, talk to
Mhm.
me about how you came to be a person who not only became comfortable being vulnerable, but as someone in your, when you think about your platform, you're
Mhm.
always in a vulnerable space. So, talk to me about how you develop your vulnerability skills.
Um, as far as my vulnerability skills, I think they just developed. It developed over time. I think first of all, growing up in New York City, in the inner city, and my family just really stressing education and pushing forth. I think that a lot of it was like, okay, you don't cry about things, you don't complain about things, you just put your head down and do the work. So at a young age, I became a stuffer with my feelings and my emotions. When I went to go live with my grandmother, witnessing her have blind faith and take on me and my brother when my parents were struggling with their addiction, I was the kid that just, wanted to make good grades, didn't want to get in any trouble. So a lot of stuff I just held to myself. And as I started getting involved in sports, I learned that, well, I experienced it healing me. I experienced it like becoming a coping mechanism for me, but still, it was a lot of things that I was trying to process and I was going through emotionally. And I think that's just a tale of my story, leaving New York City, going to school in Tennessee, experiencing such high levels of success, and being a top athlete is like, hey, I got to put this face on. I got to show up. I got to show out. And I can't talk about the things that I'm really struggling about because it's a fear, especially in our community, being Black, it's a fear of being judged because the emotions are something that are really tough and makes people uncomfortable to talk about. And finally, I got to the point when here I was, a successful athlete, the things that I wanted in my life, I worked really hard for it. I was able to attain them, but still, I'm a wreck. Let's be honest. I'm struggling with mental illness. I'm going to therapies. I'm going to therapy, seeing my counselors, doing just enough, off and on medication. And I was just tired of it. I was in a battle with here, like either I'm honest and truthful with myself or I'm not going to be here on this earth. And I just remember I just stepped forth and I said, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. I don't care what people think, because it's always a fear of being judged. And that's something that, just stops a lot of people from, living in their truth. And as soon as I spoke my truth, I realized like there's a lot of people going through the same thing. It was a lot of people that I could connect with, and we're healing together and we're sharing stories. And there's such power in that.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you talked about two things, even in your response, about your path to mental wellness, and talk to us a little bit about how you had to learn to take the courage to take off the mask, to take steps towards your own mental wellness.
Man, oh gosh. I think, oh man, this has been quite a journey, because even now I'm 43 years old, and I still live with mental health concerns, and each day, I'm sort of like in recovery. But I think the steps that I took was realizing that I needed support. I think for a long time, I kept things to myself. I got to push through, because that's what I learned as a young kid, dealing with my environment. You just put your head down, you do the work, just clear that path. And same thing with athletics. Like, it's like, okay, I'm not going to talk about these things. I got to show up, I got to show out. And so for me, it was finally saying, you know what, I got to do the work. I got to do the work, just like in school, academically, just like in athletics. If I want to be healthy, I got to put effort into this. So it was really locking in, doing the therapy, doing the work. And it's hard, it's painful when you're dealing with trauma and having to rehash, things from your past, and dealing with my parents, or situations that I may endured, as far as like race stuff. That was something, leaving New York City and going to the South and having all these feelings and emotions that I can never open up about, and sitting there talking to one and just like, hey, like, I'm angry. I have anxieties with certain things. This is who I am. And when I started opening up and just sharing and feeling that secure and feeling safe, it transformed my life. But there's also that point too where, having gone to therapy and realizing that we change over time, maybe the therapist that I'm seeing is like, okay, you have anxiety, you have clinical depression. And then over time realizing, all right, someone else tells me that I've been seeing for a while, tells me, oh, you have bipolar disorder. And so having to process this ever changing chemical imbalance, it is really, really, really tough. So I was angry at times, because I'm like, all right, why didn't they get it right the first time? Why did I have to go through this? But when you hear stuff like, hey, it takes 10 years, sometimes longer, to diagnose a bipolar disorder, having to educate myself and my family, that's when I started having a little bit of peace and comfort. And I was like all in. I said, boy, like, I attack everything else, from business to athletics. I'm doing this for myself. And to see now, like, the color, that's the thing. Like, my life is colorful. I'm happy, for what it's worth. And I just committed to me. And that's such a beautiful thing to see the results when you put work in.
Thank you. What about, I think there's probably not a person in this world who doesn't know your name, right? And know about your drive and all the work that it took to get you in a place to be, how successful you were and are
Mhm.
sports. And talk to us a little bit about what are some of the pressures to be the best, how to be excel. So when you talk about that shift from moving from New
Mhm.
York to coming
Mhm.
down south, and this idea of Black excellence, right? And so that's one
Right.
pressure within itself.
Mhm.
But talk to us about how maybe that pressure of Black excellence and then some other pressures that we don't even know that maybe were not surfaced in the film affected
Right.
you and made your drive.
Right. Okay. Coming from a place like New York, and you look at athletics, yeah, it's you consider like basketball, we're the mecca. At that time, me coming up in New York, it's like a lot of bad influences. You got dealing with the crack pandemic, just dealing with a lot of street stuff. And so your thing is, all right, your family's constantly telling you make good grades and you're gonna make it out of here. You're gonna succeed and do well. So that's pressure. I'm carrying this on my back. I don't want to mess up. They're not telling me to make it in my case because they want something from me. They're telling me to make it because they want me to create a generational shift. My family was always about education. So all my grandma's kids went to college and things like that. And it's like here I am now, she's raising me. I'm her granddaughter. So the mistakes that she made probably with her own kids, she's just really attentive, and everything that I do, she's just like watching over it, trying to protect me, making sure that I'm doing constructive things. And so carrying that constantly, and then you're moving into the world of sports, you're taught, all right, especially if you're really good, like you have to put up this you have to like make sure who you hanging around, having good people around you. Watch out because people are going to kind of try to get close to you, and you have people trying to get into your network or whatever because I guess you're popular or you're cool. So having to like navigate that, and then performance, I mean, just the average person showing up and doing their job, there's pressure in that. So now you're on a platform where you're getting criticized for your job, in front of thousands of people, and having to have people judge you, and newspapers and stuff write about you and say things. That's a whole that's a whole lot of stuff, man. It's like right now I'm watching the Britney Spears special. I don't know if you guys heard about that, and like how Whoopi Goldberg was talking about that, and how she brings her parents, but since she was 15, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh my God, I can kind of understand that to a degree, because you're not equipped. I'm not equipped at that young age to sort of navigate certain spaces, but here I am because I have this talent and ability. Hey, fast forward, you got to step into this. And I just think that I wish I would have had a little bit more preparedness. But when you're like an anomaly at that time, no one has took those steps that I've took. So it's not anybody that I can like really learn from in a sense, because it's like something that's new. So for me, it was just sort of like this navigating those different things. And then you put me like, I had the most amazing time in college, like at Tennessee, but it took some time getting used to because I'm here, like I'm in New York now, and it's just like I walk outside, it's like all types of people, black, white, gay, straight. It could be cold outside. Somebody wants to walk down the street in a bra. Nobody's looking. Nobody. Like, people might look, but no one ain't saying nothing because it's just like it's New York. So now here I am, and I didn't understand what I was really getting into as far as like the lack of diversity. I go to Tennessee. I'm looking at playing for Coach Pat Summit. They have my major. Whoa, this is a winner. I went there. I'm like, where are the Asian people? Where are the Hispanic people? Oh, it took a girl from New York, was like, obviously you didn't pay attention. Tennessee is 98%, the university, 98% Caucasian, 2% other. So having to, navigate this change, and outside of the campus, race issues and stuff. I'm not saying that's not in New York at that time, but it was a little more in the South, like put in my face. And then you get popular, and to see how people treat you different. So it was a time I really grew up. It was a time. It was a lot of. It was uncomfortable to navigate, but I had that safe space, and that safe space was on that campus. It was with an amazing leader and coach, Pat Summit. And between her and my grandmother, I think those two women like really helped mold me into a strong, um, a strong woman, a resilient woman. So it's a lot, you know how you go through times and like situations are like bad, and you just learn like, all right, like I can get through this. And you're young, you're trying to fill that out. And when you get those little victories, they fulfill you so much. So I think now, like the challenges that I have with my mental health as adult, I wouldn't have been able to get to this place at 43 years old if it wasn't for my grandmother June Holdsclaw and Pat Summit, like helping me understand, like you may hit the ground, like you may fall, but you gotta fight and claw yourself. You gotta allow people that love you and support you to help you get back up. You cannot do it by yourself. And once I realized that light bulb went off, like, oh my god, like I have to talk to my friends and I have to talk to my family about these things and educate them if they don't know, because some people don't think mental illness is real. They like, girl, you ain't go to church. You need to go. You need to pray. Are you tithing? Like all these different things that I'm hit with, and it is like a really tough for me too, because I come from a very spiritual, like my family is like very involved in our church at home, and so for me, that was another part that I had to navigate, because if I've always had that solid root in my faith, and then like here I am now, those are the people that are judging me, like, oh, I'm great, but now it's like, girl, she going. I heard people, oh, she going crazy because oh, she date women and all this stuff, and I'm like, yo, like this is so hypocritical. So then I didn't want to deal in that space anymore, and not saying I've never lost my religion or my spirituality, but it's like, yo, this is supposed to be a place of love and togetherness, like this was the thing that fed my soul for so long, and now it doesn't feel good because I don't feel like supported. So having to like just navigate that and taking my experience, right, and going to like the Black church conferences and suicide, and telling people like how the church has to take more responsibility, in order to make sure, like, not being so judgmental, man. Just being a little bit more open. So I'm honored. Like, I'm just so blessed. I won't even say honored, just blessed to see the change as far as like the Black church stance on mental health. It's not just relationship counseling center, things like that. Like, they understand now people are like really going through some severe challenges and are addressing it.
I think you're exactly right. I've worked in this field for many years, and I think about we still have stigma. There's still a lot of stigma around mental illness and mental wellness. And when we think about the church, it could be such a powerful place for people to get the help they need. And
Mm-hmm.
many years ago, I worked with the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and we had a grant, and we actually paid churches to be what we call emotional fitness centers. And so imagine you have someone that's depressed or having some mental challenges, and then you go and talk to your pastor. Well, it doesn't just stop there with what do we say? Just pray about it. I'm gonna pray over you. Instead, that pastor's been trained to be a liaison, and then they could work. And so mental health providers also have office hours in the church to kind of reduce that stigma. So I say, oh, you know what? This is more than just praying about it. I think you need to go see the counselor down the hall. And so
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that and that partnership, what could we do, or what would you suggest society does to reduce the stigma and so that people can get the help that they need, especially thinking about the last 10 months the world has gone through, and knowing that
Mm-hmm.
more and more people are probably in need of therapy. So what are your thoughts about what could a collaboration look like?
I would say, you heard that saying, like women lie, men lie, numbers don't, and statistics are there, and that with the rising suicide rates, the people who are stressed, the people who are going through these challenges, who don't have services. And it's just having conversation. Like, that's the thing. We change by having a conversation. We change by sharing stories, and having those stories, these powerful stories of women and men who are so brave, put in the media. It's just so important. People think I joke around when I say the person. And I ain't never met this person that helped me work through my challenges was Catherine Zeta-Jones. I had never met Catherine Zeta-Jones in my life, but I was like researching about bipolar disorder, and her name popped up. So I got to see videos and I started reading about her, and I'm like, yo, this is a famous actress, and she talks about these things, and like she's getting through it. Like, hey, like, she inspired me to awaken something within myself. And I think that's what we got to do, man. We all got that uncle or somebody in our family who we just write off their behaviors as, he crazy or she crazy. This is what it is. And we don't challenge, like, yo, is he talking to himself because of something going on? But we can't just always just go on the back burner and be like, yeah, they crazy, whatever. Like, let's change this generationally. Let's have these tough conversations. Let's say, hey, let's check in on one another. I mean, I go around sometimes to corporate spaces and talk, and I look at and I'm like, ask questions, and they're like, yeah, you'll hear something just meeting people sometimes for a couple hours. You'll hear them, oh my God, that's my coworker. They're a little high strung. Oh, you hear their moods, and I'm like, yo, like, do you ever ask them, like, hey, how's everything going? Was everything good? Because in some spaces, people don't communicate. People go and just do their job and head home, but still we are judgmental of how that person, oh my God, a body language, I don't want to deal with him or her. Like, yo, just check in on people, and that little shift, that little say, hey, little act of kindness. Hey, how's everything? You good? How's the kids? How's the wife? That can create shift the thought process in their heads. So maybe they're taking that attention off of themselves or helping them get back in line. And so I think that's one of the steps. Just kindness, man. We just got to get back to that, just checking in. And we have to understand too, like, when we're dealing with our family and friends, like, touch is a powerful tool. It's like, hey man, come here, give me a hug, I miss you. It's like we don't understand that. When I see my cousins, and I'm like old to them now, and I can see they're going through stuff, and I'm like, hey, how's everything? I grab them, like, oh, I'll give you a hug, and you can feel how they just sink into you, and I'm like, hey, whatever you're going through, it's gonna be okay. Like, you can talk to me. Just letting people know, like, at the end of the day, I'm here, I got your back, I'm not judging you. Like, whatever you need to talk about, just talk about it. Like, I have my stuff, we all have our things, we're gonna work through this. Melissa, where did you go?
She dropped off. Are you back, Melissa?
Melissa, the conversation, come on, you just left me, man.
My bad. All right, so sorry about that, good people. They're doing construction all over here. It's like tiny, skinny house all over Nashville. Sorry about that. So I don't know where you want to pick it up. I'm gonna go back with that same question.
Oh no, we pretty much I pretty much talked about it.
Yeah, all right, good deal. So next question, thinking about, when we talk about trauma, when we talk about mental illness, everyone's so fixed to jump on intergenerational trauma and all these things that are passed down. And talk to me about, I know in the film that was mentioned of your father having mental illness, and talk to me about that, but also you noted so many people in your tribe and so many people who supported you, right? And so talk to me about intergenerational strength. That could be from your grandmother, from other people in your life where you learned about intergenerational strength.
Okay, remember that. I might need you to tap back, but yeah, my dad, having to accept, like, when I was growing up, my dad, I didn't really find out until I was in college. I did find out in college my dad had schizophrenic disorder, but I grew up with a dad who suffered from severe hallucinations. He would talk to himself and things of that sort. I thought my dad was, just an alcoholic, but what I've experienced, what I've gone through and learned and educated myself, my dad was just masking, his illness with alcohol, because he didn't want to deal with the things that were going on inside of his head. Is a fear. It's a fear that when I was going through stuff, like, oh my God, like my dad got it, I got it. I was scared as heck. I was scared to address it. It kind of pushed me away from my father, and we're extremely close. But I just was like, oh my God, I couldn't deal with it. I was afraid to talk about like his journey. But thankfully, like in my life, having the support, like my grandmother, and rest in peace, was like my rock. A couple of my aunts, understanding like, hey, I love you, I'm here for you, like talk to me about things. And I always had that, but when my grandmother passed, um, it really took me to a dark place mentally. And so what I did was I isolated, myself from the love and the support. And I'm feeling my head, that crafty little suckers on my shoulder, feeling my mind with all these negative thoughts, the suicidal ideation, all those things of me not feeling loved. It was just like it just really took over. And to get to a better place and a healing, and doing the work and understanding like how important those pieces are, like you said, that intergenerational support, that family support, having to educate them, because I had people in my family like, I don't really understand this, like, but not from a negative place, like they're human, they live, but they just like, I just don't understand, because you've always been, they look at it, oh, you've been happy, you're always smiling, you're a great athlete, great person, like how could you be sad? And having to really just tell them it doesn't matter, sharing stories, like I'm quick to be like, man, look at this person that's gone through this, look at that person. And so now to see how my family moves different, um allowing my friends, that's the key part, my friends, my sisters and my brothers, to know, like, to be able to feel comfortable to ask me, yo, like, hey, have you taken your medication? You seem a little off. Hey, is there something going on? You want me to come by, swing by? And me saying, you know what, I do feel off. Yeah, come by. I think that would be great. Because the old me, before doing the work, I'm not answering the phone. I'm in my own world. I'm hiding. I'm just sitting there feeling myself with these negative thoughts. And so it's just it's a growth, man. Support is key. But a lot of times, unfortunately, in the world we live in, people think like I did, like I'm the only one going through this. People don't understand, or they may feel that they don't have the support. It's people. No, I feel like there's like suicide hotlines. There's always somebody out there, somebody who has gone through similar things that you know of, that you can like reach back to. You are not alone, man. Because as soon as I started talking about this, my journey, it's like all these people are sharing with me, and I'm like, wow, like I'm not different. I'm not weak, because I thought I'm weak, and and this is not healthy and all this bad stuff. And I'm like, yo, this is life. Life is, ups and downs and all around, but it's great to be able to like talk and share, and to process and work towards a better day, a better tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that it's important to always have a positive outlook no matter what we go through. And you mentioned, having some intrusive thoughts. So what have you done to increase your positive self-talk? What have you done in terms of your coping skills beyond, some of the medication, just to be well and to have a strong and positive sense of self?
Well, Melissa, it's a ever evolving journey, but for me, I love just starting my day off with like some quiet time. Just me and my thoughts, like meditation, making sure that I have a release, like physically. When I say that, exercise is important to me. I really try to get 45 minutes a day, some activity. And just making sure I'm honest with myself and my feelings, talking about it, because with my wife, or with my friends, because sometimes, like in the past, I'm a very internal person, and I don't discuss things, and that's when it's like this buildup. So just being able to have honest conversation, and yeah, I would say the fitness aspect, meditation, the quiet time is so important. And I'm trying to think, it's another thing that I do, but I'm having a brain freeze right now. um, but the most important thing, I realized a change, and I've always been like a regimented as an athlete. You know, I stopped playing 10 years ago, but I was always regimented. You know, training, making sure you eat the right things, and you are what you eat. You know, and I realized like certain foods that I like during I'm feeling sad. You know, I realized, oh man, when I'm down a lot, man, I want to eat, bacon. And serious, like there's links that, bacon is it's a feel good food, but I don't know if y'all read that how bacon is linked to depression.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, just like I'm like, I love some bacon. But just being mindful, of what I'm putting into my body, making sure that I'm alive and I'm alert, and try to be as natural as I can, because at the end of the day, one of the things I struggled with was having to take the medication daily, because my family is very much like, natural, like try to eat good, take the herbs of the universe and things like that. And so for someone to tell me, multiple doctors, like, you got to take these pills, these mood stabilizers the rest of your life. I'm like, what? But nah, I'm fine. I'll figure this out. And just realizing like, okay, this is what it is. I got to do this, but also just trying to maintain a balance over my mood. So making sure I eat proper diet.
I have just a couple more questions for you.
Mhm,
You mentioned, okay, so I have to be honest with myself. So
mhm.
tell us about the lie that you had to stop telling yourself, and the
Mhm.
truth that you had to accept.
Oh man, you got good questions. Um, the 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 one of the lie is like, yo, I'm okay. That became like, a still, I'm gonna be good, I'm good, it's all good, I got this, like that's a lie. That was a big lie. The truth that I had to accept is that, I have a chemical imbalance, and this is something I have to realize, live with the rest of my life. And this is something that I possibly am going to be judged for the rest of my life because of the way society is. And I have to be okay with that. So I have to be okay with that. So I step into the room. It's funny because I'm really shy and quiet. So my wife always laughs because she's like, "Oh my God." She goes, "You just take the energy out of rooms when you walk in, because it's like I'm 6'2", like, and I smile. Like, I love talking to people, but I always try to like understand, what is she saying? And I'm like, listen, when I step into a room, if I'm working in a athletic or um mental health space, people know my journey. They know what I've gone through, and some people may judge me, some people are picking apart my life. So it's a certain confidence that I have to have, like, hey, my stuff's all on the table. like we all are dealing with things. It's unfortunately, mine is out there. So just being confident with yourself, like, that's the thing I had to be, because I ain't gonna lie, like, you play athletics, but some of people who, as we know in society, whether it's business or education, people who are very successful and reach a certain level of are very fragile. They hate to be judged, they hate to be pointed out. And so that's me. I'm like, man, I used to be like, all right, let me shrink myself down to about 5'11". I don't want to be seen, but it's like, hey, walk in the room, all right, hey, this is what it is, And I know some of the student athletes that I work with, they're like, man, you're so, these are 18 to 20-year-olds, and they're like, oh, you're so confident, you just say what it is. I said, man, every woman, I always tell the girls, every woman gets to a point in her life where she don't give a damn what other people think. like like, I hate to say it, like, are you paying my bills, or you do it? No, everybody got an opinion, man. And you got to just live your life to the best of your ability, and always keep in the back of your mind that that you're growing. You know what I'm saying? You're as long as you're being kind to others, and living in a way that you feel good about. And and so that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Definitely, definitely. It's important to be rooted in where you stand, right? So my last question is, thank you for making the film and just being vulnerable and taking time to speak with us today.
Mm-hmm.
So with the film, I think about this idea of legacy. So in sports, you've definitely made your mark, in the Hall
Mm-hmm.
of Fame, you have camps, and right now you're using your platform to inform and to advocate for
Mm-hmm.
persons that have mental illness. And so tell us what you want people to take away from the film. And when you think
Mm-hmm.
about the importance of legacy, what would you say to the world?
Wow. Ooh, and I've thought about this many a times. From the film, I just want people to just have, when they watch the film, just to understand, like, being human, and people just going through things, and just remembering, before we judge others, or paint a person a certain way, that we really process, like, what they could possibly be going through. Because I used to sit there, New York and California have, like, a lot of homeless people. And it wasn't until I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. My grandmother used to feed the homeless, so I was always around others, but I was young. And it wasn't until I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was getting a car wash, and I could see some guys over there, like, they built like a tree house. And I'm sitting there, and my homegirl I was with started talking with the guy. And he's a very attractive man. And he's like, "Hey, how y'all doing today?" And she was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" She's real social. He's like, "Man, my wife, man, I found out my wife is cheating on me. She's cheating on me. I got 2 kids." He goes, "Man, I just been living out on the streets for a year." He's like telling us about his former career and all this stuff. And now the first thing you think, when most people are like, "Man, homeless people, they're on drugs, or they're dealing with alcohol," some type of crazy story sometimes. But this was a man that was hurt. He was like, he was dealing with this pain, like, he's like, "Man, I'm not with my kids anymore." So it led him to a mental spiral. And so, dad, I'm sorry, that story overtook me, Melissa. Take it back. I didn't forgot what you asked me. I'm so sorry. I was just thinking about that. Oh, legacy. And so, for me, it was just really, I don't know. I think about my son now. Me and my wife, we have a 14-month-old, and I just want him to know, like, when he learns all about me, it's just like, man, like, my mom yeah, she was a talented person, and a kind person, but man, like, she was a fighter, and I know it wasn't hard for her, and she created this shift within her family. Like, I've been able to, like, change the conversation with my cousins. And so hopefully, like, our family will change for the positive, because we were dealing with sometimes a lot of pain and a lot of stuff that we're endured. And so hopefully, by me speaking that over them, that we start to see this. And it takes that one person. I feel like I've created, like, a generational shift within my family. Like, I'm the one that walks over, and we have, in my family, it's very colorful. I have cousins who are transgender, just all types of stuff in my family. And I hate to say stuff, but all just types of life things that people are dealing with. But our family is just, like, so rooted around love, like, and community. It's like, I'm like, you can't call her Noel no more. You can't, that's not Noel no. And my uncle be like, "Man, we don't care what she want to do. We love her." And I'm just like, okay, I said her, it's him now. Like, our family is just, like, so awesome, like, in that instance. So I'm the one that brings those type of things up, and we just laugh about it. And my cousin will be like, "Listen, at the end of the day, y'all my family, y'all knew me from day one. Just don't say it out in public." So it's one of those things, man. And yeah, I hope that answered it.
Yes, it did. It did. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. You've been a great conversation partner. Um,
Um, well, Melissa, I just gotta give you, this is Black Girl Magic right here. I'm listening to your resume, and the impact you're making. So I think that's awesome. Hopefully we'll get to meet each other one day, since we know the same people.
Small world. Thank you. And thanks for
Hmm.
the shout out as well. I'm just trying to do my part.
Right, right. If I could ever be a help with anything, like just hit me up. Y'all got my information. And thank you for having me, and thank you for screening the film.
So, Marianne, I'm going to pass it on to you. Do you want to have some closing remarks about the film festival or anything?
I am just so grateful, Shamiqua and Melissa, for this conversation. I certainly learned a lot. One of the things that we found, Shamiqua, with Zami Nobla, one of the things we do is community engaged research. And the issue that comes up time and again with Black lesbians over 40 is this need for mental health, holistic interventions. And so it's something that we struggle with and we deal with, and we're trying to talk about every day and trying to really dismantle all the stigma and shame that a lot of people still feel. So, you telling your story, particularly because so many folks respect you and so many folks in the Black lesbian community look up to you. So, thank you for taking the time and having the grace and the generosity to be here with us. It means a lot, and particularly for Black lesbians who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s. These are the women that we're
Hmm.
dealing with who are still
Hmm.
struggling with these issues because
Yes.
they've been closeted for so long. And just
Hmm.
having an opportunity, like you say, to tell the story and to speak out loud and to be in conversation and community with each other is life changing.
All
So
right.
thank you, and thank you both uh, for doing this for Zami Nobla. We can't wait to put this conversation in the film festival so folks can listen to it at 3 o'clock in the morning and midnight and at 8 a.m. and whenever they need it. So thank you both again.
Thank you.